And we are live on the United Public Radio Network, UPRN 107.7 FM New Orleans and 105.3 FM on the Gulf Coast. How cool is that? And we are also live streamed wherever podcasts live. We're not hard to find, my YouTube channel, etc. To all those above me that watch over me, to all of you, my fave parapeeps on this side of the veil, welcome. This is Father Shawn's Paranormal Ministry. I'm your host, Father Shawn Whittington. I'm an ordained Catholic priest with the United States Old Catholic Church. I'm a fully professed brother and abbot for the Old Catholic Benedictines of Immaculate Mary. I'm a team member with Society of St. Benedict and co-founder of GhostBegone.biz. And yeah, I'm that guy on Eli Roth Presents the Legion of Exorcists, which premiered on Travel Channel and is still currently streaming everywhere if you haven't caught it. And on that note, I still want to thank everybody. I still every day get people that reach out to me that are just now discovering the show and have reached out to me with such wonderful support for that show. So God bless you. I do not know. To answer a lot of questions, I get this a lot. I don't know if there's going to be a season two. It hasn't been officially canceled, but it also hasn't been greenlit for a season two. So, you know, never say never. On that note, if there's anything you want to know about my wife and I and our ministry work, go to our website, www.ghost-b-gone.biz. If you go there to visit, there's a lot of cool things to see. Both my books are there, God, Ghost, and the Paranormal Ministry, and God, Ghost, and the Paranormal Ministry 2. You can get them a little less expensive on Amazon, and they also come in an audio version, which is awesome. But if you get them off of the website, they leave my office here. I autograph them, and they arrive to you in a beautiful house blessing kit. And you never know when one of those is going to come in handy. But the best thing about buying them off the website is part of the proceeds of every sale of every copy of my books goes to support stjude.org and the ASPCA. So how cool is that? You get to help some of the neediest children on the planet and the animals too. That's awesome. What else is on the website? There's a place where you can make an appointment to speak with me about your spiritual issues, and my online course is there, Introduction to Spiritual Warfare, taught by yours truly. It's a 12-week online college-level course, and it's for all you true warriors for Christ out there that want to learn how to draw your line in the sand, put up a great fight, perhaps the fight of your life, against, God forbid, true evil if it ever comes calling. That's the course for you. If you want more information about the course before making that type of commitment, you can always reach out to me. I'm not hard to find, and we can discuss it and see if the course is right for you. But you can just go ahead and enroll in the course there. All my students that graduate get a stunning diploma, certificate of completion, suited for framing, along with some other very special blessed items that you can only get from yours truly. Okay. You guys are going to love my guest today, but you all already know who he is. That's why you tuned in. I love him. I respect him. I think he's super cool. And he just so happens to be, in my humble opinion, one of the most knowledgeable Bigfoot authorities out there. But first, another awesome thing about my show on Fridays is I've got a regular co-host, and that's another reason why a lot of you tune in. So I will bring her out now. I've also known her forever, it seems. I love her and I respect her. She's a lifelong paranormal experiencer in her own right. She's the owner of Stellium Books. She's my publisher. Please give a big, warm paranormal ministry family welcome to the one and only Annette Munich.
Hi, Father Shawn. Hi, everybody. Hello, New Orleans and Gulf Coast. And just really, really happy to be here. Excited about our guest, but also good news that my daughter's heart procedure went very well. She's doing good. She's feeling good. And we are very grateful and very, very grateful for all of our prayers, all of the people that prayed for us, all of the kindness that came our way. just been very spectacular.
And we must already be psychically connected because that was the very first question I was going to ask you about your daughter, and I wanted you to share that with everybody. So you are blessed, your family's blessed, and I will pray that the blessings continue to come your way. That is great news. So, and I can see it on your face.
So much relief. It feels like the beginning of a new era, that we got through my son-in-law's cancer that lasted 2 years with treatments and everything. And now this was her second heart procedure, and don't think she needs anything else. So turning the page.
Very cool. Well, I will continue to keep you and your family in my prayers. You know that. You guys have been on my prayer list for a long time, and you guys will remain there. So,
And
anything you want to go ahead? I'm sorry.
you and Sharon are on my nightly prayer list too.
Is there anything you would like to share with all your fans and followers that tune in for you before we bring our very special guest out?
I do not have any new announcements yet.
Okay, well, on that note, like I said in my intro, he's quickly becoming a fan favorite here. I don't even know how many times we've had him on, a bunch. It's always a great time. In my humble opinion, in addition to having the greatest radio voice I've ever heard, so I always bug him about that he needs to get his own show. He is probably, in my humble opinion, one of the most knowledgeable Bigfoot authorities out there, and he's had many up close and personal encounters with this creature. And I'm going to go out. I'm just going to, for the record, and everybody already knows this, I'm a big believer in Bigfoot and Sasquatch. So, on that note, brothers and sisters, please give a big, warm Paranormal Ministry family welcome to Karl Sup.
Hey, everybody.
How are you, brother?
Very good. Very good. Annette, I was so happy to see the news when you posted that on Facebook. So that was.
Thank you. We appreciate that. It was really scary.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I had an aortic valve replaced, 2018. So I completely get that. And mine wasn't anything to do with, an issue that came up. It was genetic, so had to get that replumbed. So
yeah, I hear you, brother. I've been there, done that, battled that ugly disease for many years with my wife and other very close friends and family members. So yeah, you guys are all, and you already know this, Karl. You've been on my prayer list forever. So, and I always pray for you and your family. So, listen, we knew that we would talk about Sasquatch.
Yep.
And before I get to first of all, I'm going to give everybody an update on my retreat because last year I told everybody about what I felt was a sign from Bigfoot that they were there on my last retreat. And this year went back to the same place and had some weirdness happen. So I will share that. And then I had two very, really great interviews in private with a couple of Native Americans and their encounters with Bigfoot. And when I was having these interviews, of course, they don't want their identity out there and they don't want me to talk about where they are and what tribe they are and all that. That's just the way it is when you talk to a lot of Native Americans, and I get that. When I'm having these interviews, I was thinking about you and couldn't wait to share them with you. But before we get to that, you always have such wonderful updates on stuff and stories to tell because you're always out there in the field. You're boots on the ground kind of guy and out there all the time. So anything you want to, any stories you want to tell or anything you want to share with the masses, the floor is yours, brother.
All right. Yeah, no. So this past week I was in St. Louis for work, and I ended up getting out a few times, and even if it's not in the woods, it's just talking to regular folk, So I was in Alton, Illinois, and I stopped in an antique shop and started talking about Sasquatch, and they were like, oh, so and so's neighbor had a sighting over, and and we're discussing that. But then two people that were in the store chimed in and actually said how they had seen a large Black Panther sized cat. And one of them actually, while they were driving, it actually jumped over their hood as they were driving. And of course, when she tells people that, she's, they always say, "Are you sure it wasn't a house cat?" And she was like, "No, it was huge." And I said, I completely believe you, but it's like, it seems like once you actually get out and actually talk to people, relate to people, they really open up, and that's how we learn, and the funniest part was after everyone had left, the owners of the antique shop, it talked about how they were having a haunting problem at their antique shop as well.
I hate to interrupt you, but isn't this and it's funny, I was thinking about that. That word, that name, that town name kept floating around in my head after you said it. Isn't Alton, Illinois, like
Alton,
one of the
Illinois.
most haunted?
It's a very haunted place.
Oh, it is.
I thought so.
It
Yeah.
is. I've actually done investigations there as well. So yeah.
And then we're also experiencing a theme around antique stores.
Yeah. Well, this one, it was really funny because they said every time we open the store in the morning, we do a walk through the store to make sure everything's in place, nothing's fallen over or whatever, and set it up. And as he walked through, and after he'd walked through, his wife walked through, and she saw this hat laying on the ground, So she hung it back up on the hook on the wall, and you could see it from the front counter. And by the time she came around the front, she chided him and said, didn't you do a walkthrough? Why didn't you pick up that hat?" And he's like, "What hat?" And she points right over to the wall where the hat's hanging now, right? And as they both look over at the hat just flies off the hook onto the floor.
Wow.
So, but the hat had been sold since that event. But I thought that was pretty funny. Otherwise, I may have gone and bought that hat. But
It's funny. Anything can have an attachment. I have a top hat that was worn by this. The gentleman owned a carnival, and he was like the main carnival barker of the place. And he's rumored to haunt the place, but his daughter had gifted me his top hat that he had worn for many, many, many years. And that's the hat that I put all of my jokes into, that I pull out and tell jokes online here for every once in a while. But you can just feel the energy off of that item. Alton, Illinois, the name of, there's a famous haunted mansion there, and I can't remember the name of it, but I heard rumors that way back in the day, we're talking probably Civil War times, they had a huge prison there.
They did.
Civil War prison. But then they broke it up and used all of that brickwork and stonework and stuff from the prison to build most of that town. And they believe that the haunted energy attached to all of that brickwork and stonework and stuff that they used is one of the causes for many of the hauntings.
Right. And in fact, there's only one wall left standing from that prison. And it was actually it was built not for the explicit intent, but in the 1850s, I believe, just as a prison, but then it ended up being used as a Confederate prisoner of war prison during the Civil War. And of course, conditions were probably horrible on there, and they actually had like cholera and et cetera, and they ended up kind of a lot of the patients they put onto an island that's right in the middle of the Mississippi, and so a lot of those patients that were moved out there and then subsequently died, or were all buried on that island out in the middle of the Mississippi. So when there was floods, you can imagine what happened in floods. Suddenly, you'd have skeletons and pieces of people washing downstream. And anyway, it was, but that one piece of wall that's still standing from the prison, very, very high energy on that. In fact, I ended up using an EMF detector on that. And first off, I took some pictures of the wall at night, and in one of them, and I couldn't tell you if it was a mist or not, but like 5 photos in a row, same exposure, me in the same, standing in the exact same position, and one of them in the middle, you see this face kind of appear in it. I'll share that another time. I don't have it all queued up, but so the next time I went up there, I actually brought an EMF detector, and then I just started asking questions, and I was like, are you here? And it was, it was it would spike up and answer, like I'd ask like almost like yes or, questions like, were you from Tennessee? Or, were you from South Carolina? Nothing. Right. And then it'd be like, were you from Kentucky? It'd be like, up to, literally it would, and then I'd ask the question again, like just to, because that's the way I am. Right. Any scientific method, you have to repeat it. Right. So I asked the same question again, it responded. And I said, but are you, you're not from Tennessee? Or I said, you're from Tennessee? No response. I said, Kentucky. Boom. I mean, it was spot on, it was really, really an interesting little session. I do have a video of that as well, but.
Well, what's really cool is, it's obvious, when you're having spirit communication, because especially if you're at up, where there's nothing normal that would be giving off that type of readings on those EMF detectors, like high power wires overhead or right under the ground there, or anything close by.
Yeah, but it wouldn't even. I mean, there were wires, that were airborne wires in that area and stuff. But the baseline reading on the EMF was a 1 or none. I mean, it was, and then all the questions asked, and it would just, once it settled on an answer, I could get it to respond on that same query. Which is not normal.
I haven't looked at my list in a long time. Somewhere around here, I have a list of must go to haunted locations if I ever get back into that or have time to do that. And I know Alton, Illinois is on that list, so I'm a little jealous.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
If I get if you want to go up there, I'll go with you. It's I know the town pretty well, so.
I'm from Illinois, but I've never been there. I've heard a lot about it, and they have a lot of events down there. And for St. Louis, my youngest daughter lives in St. Louis.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, and that's and that was the birthplace of Miles Davis. So.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And isn't that funny? I flew into St. Louis. We're all having a connection here today. I flew into St. Louis to go to my retreat, which was in Columbia, Illinois.
Yep. And I mean, from the airport, it's maybe a 20-minute drive to get to Alton from the airport in St. Louis. So
yeah, we wanted to, a bunch of us, there was we didn't have time to, but a bunch of us wanted to try and go to the original Exorcist house there in St. Louis before flying back, but we just didn't have the time. By the time we got done on Sunday, which was the end of the retreat, getting to the airport and all that was, we just didn't have time. But we thought about that. But there's so much in that area. Let's talk about real Bigfoot versus TV Bigfoot.
Yeah, TV Bigfoot falls quite short, and a lot of, especially like shows where there's I want to say just real this group is out in the woods looking for and like not mountain men, whatever, mountain monsters or whatever that show was, and it's over exaggerated. Plus, these guys are out there basically loaded for bear, and then it's like, oh, it's vicious, it's throwing rocks at me. Well, you know what? I'm sorry. If I came into your living room, Shawn, I'd be expected to get, to get rocks and sticks thrown at me. If I was coming in there with a 50 caliber, rifle, Sorry.
Absolutely. I'm going to go on record and say I like the shows, but I go in totally different. If I'm free and I have the time and it's on, I already know going in, I'm not going to see Bigfoot. I know that. Right. But if there's always something about that show I like, and even like Finding Bigfoot. Everybody's always thinks it's funny when I say this, but my favorite part of the show were the town halls, because it's just like what you experienced when you went to Alton. It's all these people from an area that's a hot spot for Bigfoot sighting, and all these people, totally credible witnesses, different walks of life, first responders, teachers, young people, old people, they all come together in this town meeting, and they've all had, the one thing they all have in common is they've all had encounters. I always found that the best part of that show. And then Expedition Bigfoot, I simply just like the show because I respect that everybody on that show is the real deal. And I respect the fact that they really look like they're putting in the time to try and find this creature. I know they're not going to, but I respect what they're putting into, the effort they're putting into to try and find this.
Actually, you make a great point. Expedition Bigfoot is probably the closest thing to how I operate in the woods, where, I am validating research. I'm collecting evidence. I'm, it's a logbook. It's not quite it's not spectacular. And even like last night, I was out in the wilds of West Alton, Illinois, and other than revisiting the site where I had my 10th sighting there, I hiked around, and even though in the past I'd found some signs of them inhabiting this one area, I didn't see those signs, or if some of them were, I found a couple of the areas that I went to before, and they were really broken down. They hadn't been used or rebuilt or, in that time. So I don't know if they've moved away. I know definitely other areas that they hang out with in that kind of right in that confluence of the Missouri, Illinois, and Mississippi River area. But it was, and like I said, when I have sightings and stuff, it's only because I've done a lot of research in that area, and talked to people, listened to what they were saying, like you were saying, a town hall type of thing, and like I said, it's really important to have that, to active listen, right? Now, don't just shut it off and go, oh well, that couldn't be, and then your brain turns off and you discount that, right? Even if input was, if their input was $1 worth, and if you even get a nickel's worth of information out of that, it's worth it.
Yeah.
So I strike out more. I strike out more than I obviously, with 13 sightings, it's like, and being out in the woods, probably, I'm up to, probably 500-600 evenings in the woods, at least. It's,
well, you sent me a picture. I didn't have time to load it up.
That's fine.
You had mentioned in your note to me, this was the location of your most recent sighting. Yep. Near the Mississippi River. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So it was my 10th sighting. The last sightings that I've had, the number 11, 12, and 13 were all in Arizona, but this one I had traveled this road, and it's actually the same road that or approximate trail that Lewis and Clark took back in 1803. But driving down this road, and the speed limit's like 55. I typically hit it at a time when there's not a lot of traffic. So I'm going about 25, 30 miles an hour along there. It takes a while to get through that road. Brights on, driving, driving slow and just looking, hoping, I'm basically on my way back from Alton to, from my favorite Irish pub there, Morrison's Irish Pub. They're fantastic if you ever get there. And last night was Sea Shanty Sing Along. So it's just, anyway. But driving along there and, never probably drove that road probably, I don't know, 60 times, 70 times probably, with the hope this is an area I think that they will transit across. And sure enough, the one night I'm driving along and all of a sudden I see what looks like a tree standing on the side of the road to me. And it's it looked like it had moss on it, but its hair was like brownish, reddish brown, but with a lot of gray in it. But like I said, it looked like tree moss hanging off of a tree.
Yeah.
And it was right near the road, whatever. And I remember thinking, even when I saw it in the headlights initially, I thought, I don't remember a tree there, but it wasn't until I actually got a little closer and almost on it that it actually turned its head and looked straight into the headlamp, the brights of the car and the saucer eyes just, reflecting the brights of the headlights, but approximately 8 feet off the ground. Right. Wow. and you could see the motion as it turned its head and still going 30 miles an hour. It took, and by the time I reacted, I stopped probably 100, 150 feet, I don't know, 100 feet away from it, let's say. And I threw it in reverse and I backed it up. And of course, by the time I got there, the tree was gone.
Yeah.
When I went back, I revisited the site again because I hadn't been there in, probably 3 years. And, but
was that still in Illinois?
It is actually in Missouri. Just on the west side of the Mississippi. So if you went from this location and went straight across the river, you'd probably be near Grafton or the Pierre Marquette Preserve State Park on the other side. So give anybody an idea of where that area is, but the it had 3 years ago I had done that research where it had actually come down a clearing in the woods where power lines ran through these woods, and the woods are pretty deep and dense. But it was standing right in that area. So there was a power pole right there. Plus there was also a curve ahead sign that was mounted there. So, when I actually 3 years ago, when I went back to the location, I, looked at that sign. I measured the sign because the eyes were taller than that sign was. And that was within probably 5-6 feet of where the individual was standing. But I have to assume it was a male from the height because it was over 8 foot. So. Wow.
Very interesting. And what would normally freak the normal person out that never sees these or never had an encounter, it's just like not a big deal to someone like you.
No,
it probably would even freak me out. But I'm going to go on record and say that I think a great show would be. I'm a spiritual kind of guy, and I think there's a lot of. I talk to a lot of Native Americans who've had encounters. I think a great show would be, and these Native Americans, when I talk to them about this, they go, you'll never get a show like that because Native Americans don't want to talk about this. Or hunt something down that doesn't want to be hunted. It's kind of a mutual respect thing. But I would like to get, a half a dozen or so um, indigenous peoples together on a team to go out and take more of a spiritual approach. But in my
That
research, I find it's so interesting that I mean, right now there's probably at least 50 or more documented names of different tribes
right,
that they've given this creature, and they've recently found those paintings in those caves of Bigfoot that are like 1,000 years old.
right.
These are the people you need to talk about. I mean, okay, Survivor Man went out there, and those episodes were great, but these are people that born and raised in the outdoors, and no matter how much time Survivor Man has spent in the woods, he hasn't spent the kind of time a Native American has. We're talking 24/7, 365 a year in the outdoors. These are the people that should be really pursued and talked to about this legend.
Hmm. Well, it's interesting. So I have a lot of friends that are Navajo and Apache, and between between them, they both have names. I think the Navajo. Let me see. I wrote it down because Yeetzo. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but um, that's their name for Bigfoots, and they there and it kind of means like a child of the earth, or in their belief, which kind of overlays. Now, I haven't had that specific experience where I have researchers that I really respect that have photo evidence or things where, like, how could there be eye shine here, but I can see through that area, right? So, if they can, somehow cloak, right, where, but that fits in with the Navajo description of them, and the child of the earth is that they can, at any given time, they can fold themselves into the earth and make themselves disappear. And the Apache have a similar legend, but I can't remember the name that I was given because, of course, neither tribe really has a written language, so it's all verbal communicating. But I did remember talking to a woman who was actually the admissions officer for I won't name the college, but back east. And I was on a flight actually into JFK on Long Island, and she was going to do her connecting flight into New England, but she was Native American and from Idaho, and we talked. As I pretty much bend everybody's ear, like I said, if you don't start asking people things, you don't learn things, right? So we were talking about Bigfoots, and she wasn't sure whether or not they existed or not, but her grandmother always told her, don't go into the woods after dark, and if someone's whistling for you, don't follow it into the woods. But she was allowed to play what they called the matchstick game, which there was a stump right on the edge of their property that the stump was right on the edge of the woods, the deep woods. And she would go out there late afternoon, and she would take matchsticks and lay matchsticks out on the log in a, like a line or in a design or whatever. And in the morning, the matchsticks would be rearranged, and then she'd rearrange the matchsticks. And she said the matchstick games. Well, and she said it was, in her mind, it was always just forest magic, right? But just based on the number of what I call ground glyphs that I've found over the years, and some of the some of the research and documentation that was done at the Mike and the Mike Sells site up in Paris, Texas, they they understand or they know Ogham, the language Ogham, which actually is represented by lines and cross, so of course whatever the results were from this woman's matchstick game, I asked her if I could write that entire account up so I could really truly document it, right? Because that's what a good researcher does. So I contacted her after, like the week after I had talked with her on the flight, and she says, "No, I'm not comfortable in talking about it because when you start talking about them, or and this is also another belief of the tribes in Arizona as well, is if you see one, then they can inhabit your dreams. They can basically and you should know about people getting inhabited in dreams, right, as an exorcist.
Yeah.
But that's their belief. So she refused to give me any more information or really
Well,
document it.
it's so crazy that you bring up the whistling. I got to give you the update on my retreat.
Okay,
And
yeah, I want to hear that.
Well, you remember last year, there's just picture this long building, cabins on both sides. One side's faces where you come in to the campground. The other side, the cabins face open wilderness. And I was disappointed when I first got there this year that my cabin was on the opposite side. But what I did that night before it got dark was walk to the back side, and I called out Janosqua, which is the name that the Wyandotte Senecas gave that creature, and that blood is in my blood. So I said that name out there, and then I just talked normal. I'm back. Hope you all are well. We're going to be here for a few days. We won't bother you. Feel free to do whatever live your life, live and let live, so to be. Now, can I say that this wasn't there at that time? Not 100% sure, but the following morning, I'm going out for my walk about an hour before breakfast. No one's up. And I go to the end of the cabin and turned, and now directly in my eye line is a tree probably twice the size of the tree the year before, and it's snapped. Not taken out of the ground like the year before and planted upside down, but I was standing in that same spot the night before saying what I said, and I think I would have remembered that tree. And there was many trees around it, even much smaller. Nothing was bothered. We didn't have bad weather. So me, of course, I thought, I don't remember seeing that. I think that's a sign. And then I went on my walk. I went into the church, which was open, said my morning prayers. Then I went for a walk down to an area called the Labyrinth, which is a outdoor Stations of the Cross in a garden area. But you got to take this path down to this, but you're also surrounded by wilderness. And the whistling started. And I know nobody was up. Could it have been a bird? Sure. But it was just weird. This whistling sounded like a person trying to get my attention and get me to continue to come out to where it was at. And I couldn't. I'm in my barefooted in my Skechers slip-ons, and I've got my Benedictine robe on, habit on. I couldn't go out there, but so I thought that was very interesting. And I think that tree, I'm going to say, I really honestly don't believe that tree where I was standing the night before was like that.
Right. Well, and that that whistling, it's really funny. I've heard them doing that quite often. But sometimes in the middle of the night, where there one or two or maybe three of them circling your tent area, and you can hear them just kind of giving the whistle, like reporting in where they are, or maybe even a rock clack at that point. But the one of the interesting ones was I set up audio traps in a canyon here in Arizona, and the on the recorder you can hear. First off, you hear a lot of elk. It was late October. You hear all these elk just bugling, and you could hear them making a ruckus, and you could hear them coming up the canyon. But since I had 3 audio traps up, I got it from kind of 3 perspectives, so I could actually kind of because I always write down, because I've got stereo microphone on it, so on each of those. So, and then when I hang them up, I log microphone direction, but even though they're omnidirectional, but still there's a certain strength to it, in the recording. So I knew exactly the directions and everything but they were using whistles in order to position themselves, probably to hunt some of the elk. And this was like 2-3 in the morning. It's pitch black dark out there. But the funniest whistling thing was with my with a friend I go camping with often, who thought I was kind of nuts until I actually took him out there, and then he was like, "Oh my gosh," But he we came out, we took hiked all over the place, and then took a little nap in the afternoon, and then I came out of the tent. And the moment I came out of the tent, right, probably 150, 200 feet away, there's a whistle, and you could hear the wind blowing over lips. I mean, it was definitely, wasn't a bird, right? And I said, and I looked at him and I said, that's a Sasquatch. And he was like, really? And I said, yeah. I said, why don't you whistle back? So he whistles back, and he goes like that. And within 2 seconds, it whistles back, just imitating him. So then he goes, and it imitated him back. This went on for about 5 minutes.
Wow.
Until my friend got kind of get a little smart alecky and went, and then all was quiet. It was kind of like, yeah, no, we're not doing that.
Well, I recently had, and I thought of you the whole time I was talking to these 2 gentlemen. I recently had 2 interviews, and I've tried so hard to get these 2 gentlemen. Annette would love these guys, and you would too. I would love to get them on at the same time you're on and have like a panel discussion, but you can't get these Native Americans to want to go on camera and talk about this stuff. But I know we don't have a whole lot of time left, so I'll just give you the gist of these 2 stories.
Sure.
They're both respected elders of their tribes, 2 separate tribes. One guy's back east, one guy's out here in the Mojave Desert. The one out here in the Mojave Desert, I've known him for a long time. He will swear to you that these things can shapeshift, and they can turn into a wolf, they can turn into a bear, and they can also just like transport, just like disappear and transport from one area to another. He says they're flesh and blood, but they've got very strong supernatural powers, and that's what they believe. Now, the thing I found striking was he was the same guy that invited me to a sweat lodge ceremony, and then said the only people we didn't invite to attend was the Sasquatch. And I never forgot that. And when I brought that up to him, he said, well, that's funny you should ask. We have people in this tribe that will swear to you they've communicated. And I thought about our friend Sharon Day, who psychically communicates with them in the past. She refers to them as like autistic savants.
Yeah.
And he says the communication is very rudimentary, from them sticking their finger in the dirt and making signs to some kind of weird sign language thing that you don't really know what they're meaning. But they always just assume they're asking for some trade. They don't know what to trade with them. So they leave like food out for them.
Mm-hmm.
And that seems to be enough. But he swears, I have no reason to believe he's not lying to me. And this is on the reservation. So these things have been there for generations after generations. They don't feel threatened. Now, the other side of the United States, this other respected elder, he's been in this home on the far outskirts of his reservation for many, many generations. And he tells me stories of sitting on his back porch and droves of juveniles will come up. And he can see all, and it's at night. He can see all the eye shine. He watches them climb trees. He knows that the bigger ones out there are usually females watching over them, which I thought was interesting. I go, you don't think any males watch over him? He goes, no, I always feel it's the mothers and the females of these clans watching the younger ones. But they feel safe to come up to him, and he leaves toys out. He's still a believer in don't feed the bears type thing. But since it's juveniles, he leaves like stuffed animals, balls, action figures, dolls out there, and they're always gone the next day. So I just thought you would find that very interesting, but you can't get these Native Americans to want to
Yeah.
go on camera and be
Well,
interviewed. And
yeah, I stock up at I won't say Dollar General, but probably like Dollar Tree uh, here before I get up to a campsite, especially here in Arizona. And I'll put out some stuffed animals or toy cars and stuff like that. And over time, they've all been taken. They've disappeared overnight. But the little stuffed animals seem to be the bigger hit. The Hot Wheels didn't move quite as fast as I thought they might, But I do leave apples out. I've left like pound cake. And it was kind of a test because I put the pound cake in tin foil, wrapped it up so it was completely sealed, right, to keep it nice and fresh and moist. I mean, it would dry out instantly here in Arizona. In the morning, I mean, and if it was a raccoon or something else that got into it, it would have just shredded the aluminum foil, and it would have been crumbs everywhere on the ground, or at least scraps of foil and whatever. No, the foil had been and the folds on the foil were underneath the pound cake. So something actually flipped the pound cake over, unfolded the tin foil, ate the pound cake, and then folded the tin foil back. So it was now a rectangle again, but flat, without but the apples are, and in exchange, there's always, and they know, especially when I go up on the Mogollon Rim here in Arizona, I know they've seen me going out and finding brachiopod fossils up there. And they'll leave brachiopod fossils for me. They'll either be on the table or maybe sitting on top of my car. And I don't think those brachiopod that died 120 million years ago got legs and, crawled its fossilized shell up on top of my car by itself. So,
well, what I really found amazing from talking to both these gentlemen was they both finished their stories with they both had this one major thing in common, which as soon as they both told me this, I thought that's why these shows are never going to find them. They both said the moment you bring out any kind of camera device, they're gone like that. And even the guy on the back porch with all of the eye shine and the females eye shine, and he's leaving toys out there, if he even brings his phone out, they're gone.
Yeah.
And the other guy on the West Coast says the same thing. Any kind of even drone, they're gone.
Yep.
They know.
And that's why I abandoned it. I'd rather them come within 50 feet of me and hide in the brush right there, and I communicate with them, than trying to snap a picture of them. I learn more of their behavior and, just.
Have you heard the new theory about?
Have
you heard the new theory about the smell? Like, you don't hear enough of the smell talked about a lot.
Yeah.
But some of these Native Americans say that not all of them smell. That some of them, it's like a defense mechanism to let you know it's there and don't come over here, or another kind of defense mechanism, or communicating with other clans, but that they don't all smell.
Right. Well, and that's interesting. So I've had in all my sightings, and some of them very close up, not, I've only had two foul smells. One was on Long Island, and I know I surprised it. And it was just, like I say, it's a combination of like summer porta-john plus grass clippings that have sat out for a week, plus it's just and then in Arizona, there was, and that one on Long Island I didn't see, but certainly could smell, and then it was throwing rocks or acorns at me after that. But it was I didn't get to see that one. Now the other one in Arizona I didn't get to see, but it smelled just like human feces. And in fact, I was driving down this very rugged old logging road and had the windows down, because a lot of times I'll hear them whistle or something as I'm driving along, and then I'll stop and get out and try to communicate. Well, this one I'm driving along, and all of a sudden I'm like, wow. I'm like, this is, this smells like human feces. So I got out, and I'm like, and I got to have a pretty sensitive nose. I'm like, okay, it's coming from this direction, So I start heading up the hill in that direction. And when I did that, now the smell was coming from over here, started going up, and finally I'm like, okay, I don't see anything moving, but it's got to be close from that smell, right? But couldn't see anything. So I got back in the car, and my friend's like, he had gotten out as well, and he's like, wow. He goes, that's strong, so we were joking. We said, oh, we'll call this one, Professor Poopy Pants, and but we drove probably another quarter mile away and got into this large meadow, and I parked there, and we got out, and we're in this meadow, right? It's probably 300 yards in all directions, right? It's just open, right? Open grass, whatever, but it goes right up to tree line, clear around the whole thing. Well, we're sitting there. I sat dead center in the middle of that meadow, and about 10 minutes later, the smell is back, right? Except this time it ended up circling around us. And it was close. It was, but with 300 yards of vision on all sides, couldn't see it, right?
Wow.
And that's my only experience where I think, okay, was that a cloaked, cloaked with, just the fact that it ended up going clear around us, and it wasn't just the wind shifting directions or whatever. There was just no breeze whatsoever. It was close enough to, anyway. So
well, I'm gonna continue to try and persuade these guys to maybe one day come on to a panel show version
I would love that.
my show, and have I think Annette would enjoy that too, meeting these two gentlemen and just whatever comes to her mind that she wants to ask, not being like a squatcher. That's what I love, having someone like Annette on the panel, and then someone like you on the panel, and then two guys that don't want to be on the panel. If I'm able to somehow get them on there.
Today I just mostly listen because I'm fascinated with the stories. I don't have a personal experience. I love hearing about, what people are encountering out there. And so I really enjoyed it. And Father Shawn, I'm surprised that you went back to the site of that retreat, and then you tried to make a second encounter. So that's pretty interesting.
And that's, you see, and you're my kind of man, because that's how
I'm thinking when I'm out there, and I'm out there in, taking my morning walk in the labyrinth, and I'm thinking to myself, when I'm hearing the whistling, I'm like, I should have known. I could have always gone back and changed into my Benedictine habit before all our daily ceremony stuff started. Why did I wear that down there to the labyrinth? Now then again, maybe they knew, this guy's not
Yeah.
going to come walking out here looking
Right.
for us dressed the way he is. I think they're far more
Yeah.
sophisticated and smart than we even
Would you
know.
don't even have proper running shoes? That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, listen, brother. Oh my gosh, I can't believe we just have a couple of minutes left. I don't want us to just get cut off. I love you. I respect you. Can't wait to have you back. As a matter of fact, I've already got a date set up for you because I know you're going to have, between now and the time I have you come back, I know you're going to have some other stories to share with us.
Oh yeah.
Anything you want to say before I kick you out of here?
I just let everybody know, keep your minds open. Don't discount any information that you get, and you'll learn, grow, and the world will open itself up to your possibilities. It's
interesting.
I love
I
you,
love
brother.
that.
I'll talk to you
Thank you,
soon.
Carl.
Okay?
We'll
All
see
right.
you soon.
Oh,
Thank you.
love you guys.
Take care. Karl Sup. Oh my gosh, we're almost out of time, sister. I
know.
love you and respect you too. I'm so happy that you had great news for us about your daughter at the beginning of the show. Anything you want to say before I kick you out of here?
I will just say thank you and wish everybody a great Friday night and a great weekend. And we'll be back
Absolutely.
next week with Susan.
Absolutely. That would be Friday, May 30th. Happy Medium Monthly with Susan Ahern.
Right.
Free live on-air psychic readings.
And she's in chat. So hi, Susan, and a little heart for you. Hi, Susan. She's in chat.
All right, sister. Have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. I'll talk to you next week.
Thank you. You as well.
See you later. All right, brothers and sisters. God bless you all for tuning in because I don't have a show without you guys. And I mean that. That's heartfelt. God bless United Public Radio Network, Michelle DeRoche, Joe Montado. Thank you for everything. Stay tuned for Spirit Switchboard with Carrie Lynn Shellhorn. And everybody have a wonderful, blessed Memorial Day weekend. Don't forget what Memorial Day is really all about. And just be safe. Like Karl said, keep your minds open to the possibilities. I do believe, I've gone on record many times and said I do believe. And I think in my third book, which I'm working on now, I'm finally going to put pen to paper on this encounter I had, which a lot of colleagues of mine that do believe in Sasquatch and go out there and do a lot of squatching really believe I had an encounter, and this was when I was in junior high school. And maybe I'll even get my lifelong friend that had an experience when he was young and saved from drowning, was picked up out of some quicksand in a old pond by a Sasquatch and tossed up onto a bank, which saved his life. Try to get him on too. So anyway, happy Memorial Day. God bless you all. Remember, we may have done what the devil said we did, but we are not who the devil says we are. Good night, Danny. Good night, Jack. Good night, Dog. Good night, Harold. Rest in peace. Good night, Ernie. Good night, Bill. Good night, Dan. I love you all. God bless you all in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Peace.